Good evening and welcome to the Greenfield Public Schools Special School Committee meeting. Today's Thursday, March 18th, 2021, 6 p.m. This meeting is being held fully remotely in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts March 12, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, GLC 30A, Section 20. We will move right into our agenda for the evening. Secretary Johnson Musad, can you do a roll call of school committee members, please? You're on mute.
Member Karen?
Here.
Chair Ekstrom? I see you, but I didn't hear you. Oh, no,
We can't hear you.
But I got a visual that Vice Chair Ekstrom is here.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, it was the thing.
All right. Secretary Johnson Musad, I am here. Chair Prietti?
Here.
Member Wall?
Here.
Mayor Wiedegardner?
Here.
You're all here.
Wonderful. Thank you. So I'll call the meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. We'll do first the approval of the minutes from our, there's just one set this evening to approve. That's from the meeting last week, Wednesday, March 10th. That was our regular meeting for the month of March. Hang on, I'm getting an echo here. I would ask that anyone who's on the line, please mute themselves. I'm still getting an echo from someone who's not muted.
Looks like it's you, Chris Collins, if you wouldn't mind muting. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from Wednesday, March 10th?
So moved.
Oh, second. Johnson
Okay,
Musad.
Member Wall and Secretary Johnson Musad. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Member Karen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom?
Yes.
Member Hollins?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson Musad, I'm a yes. Chair Prietti?
Yes.
Member Wall?
Yes.
Mayor Wiedegardner? I guess that was a yes, and the motion carries.
Okay, thank you. I will move into public comment, and the way we do public comment here, the school committee meetings, is to first take anyone who is with us on the WebEx and able to type into the chat that they wish to make a public comment. We'll take those first in the order they're received, followed by we will give an opportunity for folks who are on the phone and unable to type into the chat to just verbally let us know that they'd like to make a public comment, and we'll take those next. Do we have anyone in the chat?
There's one comment that doesn't seem to be about, I'm not sure, Joanna.
Oh, it looks like maybe Mike Sustick.
Well,
I will remind. Yeah, I'll remind the public, the chat is only for indicating that you would like to make a public comment. It is not for any comments related to the agenda or other items that you wish to address with the school committee.
Great. So, all right, we got Michael Sustick first and then Eden Thompson on deck.
Mr. Sustick, you go ahead, give us your name and the town you live in, and then you'll have 3 minutes for your...
Hi, thank you. Michael Sustick leads. I'm a kindergarten teacher at Four Corners School. And I don't think it's going to come as a surprise to anybody here that, teachers are feeling a lot of anxiety about the fact that in about 2 weeks, we're going to be asked to be back in the building, and we don't have clear answers. So there's a lot of anxiety around that that I just want to share. And also, sorry, cat. And also to say that as a kindergarten teacher, I think it's really important, I spoke to other kindergarten teachers as well, that we really think carefully about how we're reintroducing children back into our buildings. These are kids, there's a lot of kids, first, second, third grade, they know the rhythm, routine of the day. And so, okay, there's going to be
my school committee meeting.
There's going to be changes here.
How's your day?
Everybody mute.
Can someone mute? Oh, there they go.
Okay, I'll go again. So for kids that have already been enrolled in schools and know the building, we could say, oh, there's going to be just a little bit of change in the schedule. This is going to happen then. This is going to happen at a different time. But for families and kindergartners that have never been to school, it's all new. They don't know where drop off is or where pickup is. So we can't say, well, it's going to be in the normal place, but with this slight change, or it's going to be at this time with this. They need to know everything, right? So I'm really hoping that as administration, as a school committee, as teachers, if that would be allowed, we can come up with a plan to slowly reintroduce kindergartners back into buildings and really think about their needs, and not just after a full year of being home, all of a sudden on a Monday morning, dump them into a socially distanced classroom. And I think that's really important. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Susstick. Do we have anyone else, Secretary Johnson-Musad, that is asking to comment?
Eden Thompson, and then let's see, Joanna Smith LeClaire has a question about whether her comment is acceptable. But anyway, Eden Thompson is next.
Eden Thompson, go ahead. You have 3 minutes. Please state your full name and the town you live in before you begin.
Hi, I'm Eden Thompson and from Greenfield. I speak up this evening as a parent of 3 children who attend the Greenfield schools, and having been present at many of the school committee meetings conducted over the course of the last year, I always find the sentiment of these meetings to be really just transactional at best. It's clear that the leadership of the school committee is not adequate to fulfill the duties in a way in which is respectful, professional, and legal. I know you realize that I speak today of the, information that was made public, of which many, I'm sure, of the people on this call are attending to address. I teach my children the values of honesty and transparency and to respect the opinion of others, even when there's a disagreement. Clearly, the chair of this committee, along with other members, do not have the ability to act on behalf of the Greenfield community in the same way. It's apparent we need a change, and quickly, as evidenced by the disdainful actions and exchanges that have been had amongst members of the committee about members of our community. Shame on you. It is time for you to step down and stop smearing the hard work of the other committee members around you, the work done prior to you, and the future of our school district. I thank you for your time.
Next is Joanna
Thank you,
Smith
Eden, for your
LeClaire.
comment. Joanna Smith LeClaire, go ahead. You have 3 minutes. State your full name and the town you live in before you begin.
I'm Johanna Smith LeClaire and I live in Greenfield. I just don't know when it's an acceptable time to ask if there's going to be offerings of morning care and after school care for those of essential working. I work at a hospital and sometimes I go in at 6 a.m. My husband goes in for 7:30, and currently we're at the Y, but my son has an IEP, needs to be back in school, and it seems like there's nothing to offer. My only option would be my mom, but I can't get transportation because we're too close to the school. So I didn't know if we could touch base on that or if we're going to.
Where'd it go?
The next person who wishes to speak is Rudy Reno.
Hi, I'm Rudy Reno.
Hold on. Please hold for a second. I'm going to ask again for people to mute themselves if they're not talking. There's a lot of echo on the line. And also, Joanna, thank you for your comments. We appreciate them. Rudy, go ahead. You have 3 minutes. State your full name and your where you live before you begin.
Rudy Reno, 74 Crescent Street in Greenfield. I support the Greenfield Educators Association, and I want to say that what I've read in the newspaper is very concerning to me, that there's not a plan yet to return to school, and that the educators and support staff, if there is a plan, maybe they haven't been included in that plan. The whole ADA situation with the acting business manager of the schools and asking about people's medical accommodations is That's inappropriate. You all got a letter. Actually, you've gotten probably the most letters you've gotten from me in the past week than in 2 years about that. And I don't feel like I really got an adequate answer to what's going on with the ULP and the grievance. And I know that there are certain considerations about confidentiality, but I guess from the acting superintendent, I did get an assurance that things would be worked out, but I'm just not seeing it because here we are in another week, another newspaper article, and things don't seem to be moving forward. I also want to say, my friend Glenn, I support you. I think you're doing a great job on the school committee. And I say that because I too, as you all probably know, saw the comments that were made, and Glenn was singled out as a school committee member who.
I'm going to stop you there, Rudy, because this isn't on our agenda tonight, and school committee longstanding policy is to only comment on things that are on the agenda.
Longstanding, or since you were
longstanding school committee policy for every school committee in the state.
For
Do you have any further comments?
Wow. Okay, Amy. I'll check up on
comments.
See, you're remorseful about your comments that you made on the email.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Secretary
yes.
Johnson-Musad.
Sheila Gilmore would like to speak.
Sheila Gilmore, go ahead. Please state your full name and the town you live in, and you have 3 minutes.
I'm Sheila Gilmore, and I live here in Greenfield. And I would also like to voice my support for Glenn Johnson. Thank you.
Anyone else? Secretary Johnson-Musad.
No one else in the chat.
Okay, so we'll move on to people who would like to voice their comments and can only do so over the phone line. Is there anyone interested in making a comment? Don't be shy, just go ahead and let us know. Not hearing anyone, going once. You might have to unmute yourself. Going twice. Okay, we're going to move right into the rest of the agenda. The first item is awards and recognitions, and I'll turn it over to Superintendent Houle for this.
Thank you, Chair Peretti. It is my pleasure, and I do see her on the line. I don't think she's got a. Oh, yep, there's her video. Alara O'Brien is on the line, and I'm very excited about this. The Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, and I can see her smiling face, has an annual academic excellence award program that is given to a deserving senior who has demonstrated 3 criteria. Number 1 is their 3-year cumulative average, their rank in class, and then a personal selection by the superintendent. It is my practice usually to ask the high school principal for nominating students, and without hesitation, Principal Pat Node recommended Alara to me. Alara's list of credentials and achievements are lengthy, as you saw in the memo that I shared with you, but I'll just bring out a few of them. She has received the Franklin County Superintendent's Award. She has received the University of Rochester Xerox Award for Innovation and Information Technology. She is a National Merit Scholar. She is a College Board National Rural and Small Town Recognized student. She has received a John and Abigail Adams Scholarship, and she is a member of the National Honor Society. Alara is number 1 in her class. She has also got a little wealth of outside of the school day activities. She's a Greenfield Film Festival winner. She's president of the French Club. She organizes National Honor Society inductions. She's a member of the Audio Visual Club, a member of the Community Service Key Club at the high school. She organizes after-school community events. She's a member of the Environmental Science Club. I'm just tired listening to this stuff, never mind doing it all. And she's also a student representative at Student Community Issues Youth Engage with legislators and officials. She also, in her spare time, which I don't know when that is, volunteers in her community. She tutors students both from elementary through high school in her neighborhood, And she also has spent time visiting a French-speaking elderly woman in a local nursing home before the COVID-19 pandemic hit. So as you can see from Alara's long list of accomplishments and her rigorous coursework, she is more than deserving of this award. And what really makes my heart sing is that Alara is a first-generation student to go to college, and she's going to Yale University to study linguistics. And when I had a chance to meet her to present the award in a physically distant kind of way, there's no question in my mind that Alara is going to make her mark in this world. So it is my pleasure just to introduce Alara to you tonight. And Alara, I don't know if you want to say anything. I don't want to put you on the spot, although that's my job in part. Or if school committee members wish to speak, Chair Priory, I'll let you take the lead on how you want to handle that.
Laura, we would love to hear from you if you're willing to speak a little bit. If it's too much, I would offer my sincere congratulations. We've heard your list of accomplishments at a previous meeting, and it's just amazing. It makes me tired just to think about all of the things that you do. And I'm so proud of being able to say that we're sending a Greenfield High graduate to Yale next year, which is just amazing. Congratulations to you. But please share your thoughts with us if you'd like. Laura, I can see you talking, but we can't hear you for some reason. I'm not sure why. Nope. It says your mic is on, but we don't hear anything. I'm still not hearing you. Nope.
So sad.
It is
Laura,
sad.
do you want to try to call in with the telephone? To do that, I can get the information. Do you know how to?
Oh,
Do you have
that's
that info?
frustrating. Sorry.
Okay, she's gonna call.
If any other school committee members want to say anything right now while we're waiting for her, that would be.
I'd make a comment, Hollins.
Please, Member Hollins, go ahead.
Alara, I just want to congratulate you. I read through your accomplishments. It made me very proud, thinking that a student could go through our school and find all these different avenues to succeed. And I was really happy to see that you were a winner of our film festival. Put in a plug for our arts programs. And I wanted to thank Dr. Houle. We had a tradition of giving flowers. So, go in with balloons and flowers or something to the student that won this. And I saw that Dr. Houle made time to meet with Alara outside and give her flowers. And I just wanted to thank you for doing that because it's a special honor. And I know you're really busy. So I wanted to thank you and as well as congratulate Alara. And maybe now you have sound and I filled in a hole.
Let's see.
Wow. My screen says you're on mute, Alara.
Well, she's calling in over the phone, so that's going to say mute.
It looks like she's calling user 17.
I agree.
But I don't know why it's not working. Well, in the meantime, I would like to also congratulate Alara. It's an extraordinary accomplishment at your age. I wish you were able to have this moment in not a pandemic year. So at any rate, the whole city of Greenfield, I'm sure, salutes you. I certainly do. And thank you for all the work that you have done in school to get to the place that you are. You and your family deserve an enormous amount of credit. So congratulations.
Hello?
Amy, you're on mute. Oh, we can hear Laura.
We can hear.
Okay, it's working?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hooray.
All right, thank you. I'm so honored. I know that I come from an amazing class of seniors, so that just makes this mean a lot more to me, and I could not have done it without all the amazing people in my life, all the things I do without the support. My family and all the educators here and all the administration. I just have to say thank you to you all too.
Thank you, Alara. And thanks for the persistence to be able to call in and give us your comments. We appreciate it. Okay. I think, Dr. Hool, you have another award. Is that correct?
I do. Each year, the Harold Grinspoon Foundation sponsors a Pioneer Valley Excellence in Teaching Awards program where teachers from all across the valley are recognized for their excellence and their contributions to the profession. And each school district gets a certain number of nominees based on their student enrollment, and Greenfield has 2 slots that we can nominate teachers to. So the first step in the process is for teachers to nominate their colleagues and then for principals to make a selection for their particular buildings. And then from there comes the tough decision when I have to cull that list down from several to just 2 winners. And as I met these teachers for the very first time over a Google Meet and tried to interview them about after having read their nominations and learning about them, I was just so impressed with all of them that I just feel like we really should recognize them as Greenfield Teachers of Excellence first and foremost. And so I would like to announce the names of those particular people. And that's Judy Bennett, who's a grade 8 science teacher at Greenfield High School. Brooke Maley, who's a library media and reading specialist at Discovery School at Four Corners. Samantha Slater, who's a reading specialist at Federal Street School. Eric Stone, who's a grade 4 teacher at Newton School. And Brian Tucker, who's a 7th grade social studies literacy teacher at Greenfield Middle School. These were the people who were nominated and that I really want to recognize as Greenfield Teachers of Excellence, because when I talk to them about how they came to education and what their passions are and what they see for the future, I was just astounded. And I know they are representative of all of the teachers here in Greenfield. And I am extra pleased to announce the 2 Pioneer Valley in Excellence in Teaching Award winners for the Greenfield Public Schools. And they are, drum roll, Judy Bennett, grade 8 science teacher at Greenfield High School, and Samantha Slater, reading specialist at Federal Street School. So usually there's a big, lovely event at the log cabin in Holyoke for these teachers, but this year it will be a virtual event, but they will be certainly celebrated. They will receive some gifts and some other things from people who help sponsor the program. And so again, just another proud moment for the Greenfield Public Schools to be able to recognize our own Teachers of Excellence as well as the 2 Pioneer Valley Teachers of Excellence. So Chair Proietti, I'll leave the next steps to you.
Thank you, and thank you to all of those teachers. What an amazing group of educators to be nominated. And I would love to hear from Judy and Samantha if they're willing to give us a few words. That would be awesome. You can unmute and just talk. Yeah.
Hi, Judy from the Greenfield High School. I just wanted to say thank you to, all my colleagues and friends and family. It feels odd to feel like I'm winning an excellence award this year because it's just been so challenging. And I just try to always be driven by empathy for all of my students this year, especially, right? It's just been so challenging. So I try to be a bright spot in their day, and I hope that that works out. And I also want to give congratulations to Alara. She was one of my students as I was kind of a newish teacher. And I think I actually still have a popsicle bridge of hers in my classroom. So
That's awesome.
yeah. So thanks again.
Well, I know my oldest is a big fan, Ms. Bennett, of you. So I appreciate all your work on behalf of our students, and clearly it makes a difference. Samantha, go ahead.
Hi, I just want to say how thankful I am and very honored for this award. I was quite surprised this morning when Principal Fenimore and Dr. Houle popped into my first grade meeting and shocked me and all the students that were with me. So I couldn't do it without my Federal Street team. They are the real rock stars, and I really appreciate being nominated and then also receiving this award. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you both for all the work you do. All your efforts make a difference for sure. And Dr. Houle, thank you for bringing us some good news in the meeting. We can always use that. I appreciate it. Okay, and we'll move into actually our next agenda item, approval of the special education handbook. And Dr. Houle, do you want to give us a little introduction?
Sure. Part of what we've been doing is preparing for a program review, and we've also been told that I can contact the department. I did contact Russell Johnston, who's Associate Commissioner, and also Nadine Ekstrom has contacted some other folks at the department, and I just need to send them an email making a request to move the site visit from the very first day that we welcome everybody back in. And I think they'll be more than happy to try and accommodate us on that. But part of what they do is take a look at the documentation that we present to them. And one of the things is that we are required to have is a special education handbook. And as Dr. Ekstrom was working with the SPED department in preparation for the program review, she learned that as I did as well when I did some searching, that the special education handbook is very out of date and is in need of some revisions. We were hoping maybe we could get the handbook to you tonight, but then when we began to do some further investigation, we have found that there are several policies that probably either need to be adopted or updated accordingly with the handbook as well. So I'm not necessarily requesting a motion to approve the handbook this evening, but I'm just requesting that the Policy and Program Subcommittee get ready for a series of meetings where we have to go through about 15 or 16 different policies to make sure that they meet the standards that they should meet for inclusion in the special education handbook, and then to go through the handbook itself and to bring all of that to the full school committee for approval.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. That's helpful. So it sounds like you need a motion, and in looking over the information, what I would suggest as a motion, and please tweak it for me if necessary, I move to charge the policy subcommittee with a review and update of special education handbook as outlined by Superintendent Houle with the guidance of Dr. Ekstrom. That works. Perfect. I saw a nod.
Yeah,
that works.
Perfect.
Okay. Do I have a motion to that effect? Don't all speak at once.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, so it was either member Ekstrom or member Karen with the first, and someone one of the same with the second. Let's have some discussion. Member Hollins, I did see your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, I was the motion because I read the memorandum with interest. It looked to me like there was primarily for policy update work, which I completely support. And I wish to ask if the specific policies that need to be updated could be shared with the full committee sometime, just so we know. It could even just be the names of the policies so we know what policy work is going to take place. That's all.
I'd be happy to provide that information to the committee.
Any other questions or discussion?
I'll just say, as chair of the policy subcommittee, Dr. Houle, I really look forward to working with you on this, and we can expedite the timeline and I'll get in and get a meeting. So looking forward to the work.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Member Johnson-Musad. Maybe tomorrow afternoon we can squirrel out a little bit of time to chat.
Great.
And are there folks from the special ed department that you'd recommend be a part of the discussions, Dr. Houle?
I would say definitely that Janet Dickinson, the special education director, should also be part of the discussion, since this would fall under her department.
Okay. And perhaps Nadine may be also available to help us out. Great. Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion from the school committee? Sounds like we're ready to vote on this. Can we do a roll call vote, please? Secretary Johnson-Musad.
Member Karen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom?
Yes.
Member Hollins?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson-Musad, I'm a yes. Chair Poyetti?
Yes.
Member Wall?
Yes.
Mayor Wiedegardner? Don't have an audio on you.
That's a nice way to say you're on mute. Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that legwork to Dr. Ekstrom and Dr. Houle. Okay, so moving on to the next item. Got a lot of windows open here. The update on a return to in-person learning. It's apparently the Dr. Houle show tonight. Who knew? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Poyetti. I did put a memo earlier in your packet around just the activities that we are engaging in as we're getting prepared in terms of what our maintenance staff is doing, ordering of PPEs, air purifying units, keeping staff informed about the vaccines that are available to them. And I know the vaccine issue has been particularly frustrating because when the governor changed course about how vaccines would be delivered, being able to do something site-specific to Greenfield came off the table. And I do want to thank the mayor and the Department of Health in Greenfield for all of the work that they've been doing to try and work with our school nurses to sort through all of this and to try and get vaccines available, as well as some folks from the FERCOG. And so the process is continuing. They keep me updated. As soon as I learn something, I pass it along to staff about how to find vaccines, where they can register for them, and hopefully that's working to be able to do that. We also have a videographer who's going to be on site with us tomorrow from about 9 to 2 o'clock, who's going to be shooting footage of all of the schools so we can put together sort of a virtual tour of what the classrooms are going to look like, you know, what the buses are going to look like, all of the different spaces, all of the different things that'll be important for parents to know about what the schools are going to look like as we prepare to welcome staff and students back. So we will make sure that that gets uploaded to our website and that we push that information out to our school community via School Messenger. I would just remind parents that School Messenger takes emails out of PowerSchool. So if you have access to the parent portal, please double check your emails, because if your email is not correct, then you're not getting our messages. And we're really trying to communicate and engage with people. So that's just really super important. So all of that leads me to, I'm going to just share my screen here. And we're going to do this one right here and that. And I just have to say that coming into the district, it's been almost a month now. Feels like it's been longer than that, but yeah, in almost a month, and trying to assess where we were with regard to a lot of things, including the return to in-person learning, to then have the commissioner come out and give some pretty specific guidance about his expectations, supported by the State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, guidance following, last week on all of this. And in the process, as you know from our last meeting, we put together an in-person learning command structure that has site teams at work on their issues in their individual buildings, or program teams or tech team, all of that kind of stuff that we're really trying to work through. And in 2.5 weeks of spinning up this process, we have a preliminary plan that we would like to share with the school committee tonight, and in hopes that we can get your endorsement so we can move forward. So just a reminder to people about the commissioner's plan that is driving this whole return to school, that on March 5th, he presented this to the State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, that he wanted a 3-phase plan that would bring students back into schools full-time in person. And the timeline as he outlined it was elementary school grades K through 5, middle school grades 6 through 8, those elementary grades on April 5th, middle school grades 6 through 8 on April 28th, and high school to be determined. He has also given local school districts the authority, or the to use local control to work around these deadlines a little bit as we see fit, in thinking about how we do this with preschoolers and how we actually roll this out. In part of the this guidance, he has also said that parents and caregivers will have the opportunity to choose to remain in remote learning mode for the remainder of this school year. So that is an option that parents and caregivers are able to exercise in this process. Part of his thinking, again, this I showed you this at the last meeting, but just again to kind of put some context around our plan, was that looking at data around 3 feet versus 6 feet, and I think where I've been trying to work with people to help gain an understanding is whether we're talking about furniture to furniture or we're talking person to person. And I think putting that sort of head thought around that, our goal is that we are striving for 6 feet person to person. That does not necessarily mean desk edge to desk edge or table edge to table edge. It might mean something less than that, but nothing any less than 3 feet apart. So that's really what the focus is what does 6 feet person to person look like in our classrooms and other spaces. So some key dates and times that we've fleshed out together. First of all, around the dates of return, we're obviously going to align with the April 5th date for our pre-K through grade 4, which is our elementary students, on April 5th. And that we would bring back all of the rest of the grades, 5 through 12, so middle and high school, on April 28th, which is the middle school date, pending the waiver approval of moving the 5th grade into the middle school domain. I have submitted that waiver as you authorized me to do at the last meeting, and have received a notice back from the department that they have received it. They have been turning them around. They said 5 business days, but they've been turning them around pretty quickly, as I've talked with other superintendents who have submitted them. So I expect to hear back from them about that waiver of using the 5th grade, moving them into the middle school timeframe pretty quickly. And the indication we got from the commissioner and the team at the DESE is that that will be a pretty easy waiver to grant. So hours of operation. We then had to take a look at, contractually what we're looking at for teacher work days, and how we make sure that we also meet the demands of structured learning time for students, and transportation, how that all fits together. So what we're looking at for the Academy of Early Learning in all of our elementary schools is that the school day would be 8:30 a.m. to 2:55 p.m. At the Academy of Early Learning, the half-day and full-day programs, as they would normally run, would run. At the elementary schools, again, it would be 8:30 to 2:55. I've talked with Kuzmeskas, who is our transportation provider. They are willing to make adjustments to their runs to make sure that this happens. The issue is that oftentimes students at the elementary level have had like recess time or something before the day begins, and at this point in time, we really can't do that for an entire school building because of the physical distancing requirements that would be needed to be able to deal with all of the students, hence having to back up the time to when teachers actually start their workday. So each of the schools are designating pickup and drop-off areas, and part of the virtual tour will be able to show those areas to parents so parents know where they are. We also have to make parents aware that if they're not going to use transportation, that there will not be an option to drop students off ahead of time. We just don't have the capacity to supervise students in advance of that 8:30 time. We wish we could, but it's just not possible right now to be able to do and to adhere to all of the guidelines and regulations relative to the pandemic that we have to follow. Greenfield Middle School, their day would start at 7:40 a.m. and run to 2:20. There will be designated areas for students to have breakfast, and then classes would start at 7:55 a.m. At the high school, their day would run 7:15 to 2:10. Again, classes, students designated to certain areas upon entry, getting a grab-and-go breakfast, and then classes starting at 7:45 a.m., which allows us to adhere to both our contractual obligations as well as structured learning time requirements. At the middle school, the plan is to try and use the Sanderson Street entrance for pickup and drop-off, and at GHS, it would be at the event entrance. So a little bit about the mitigation strategies that are in place in this plan, and this is again per the guidelines from DPH, CDC, and the DESE. So things that we're looking at really fall within the daily 4, and this is the actual graphic that was created for us, which was way better than the slide I showed you last week with boring text on it. And that is, we're encouraging people to wear a mask, to wash the hands and use hand sanitizer, to stay apart. And if students or staff are exhibiting any symptoms, to stay home if they don't feel well, so as to not have an issue in that regard. And there's supposed to be a daily attestation, shall we say, on the part of parents and the school nurse to say that students are not exhibiting any symptoms. What our school nurse team has discovered from other districts, and I do know this from having spent some time up in Mohawk, is that they've actually done a sign-off with parents. So we're going to put a sheet out to them that the parent says that every day they will check their child for potential symptoms and keep them at home if they are not feeling well. So that will be part of that particular piece. And these are sort of some guiding principles that we're working through in terms of our protocols within the building. So physical distancing, as I mentioned earlier, 6 feet between students and staff, no closer than 3 feet for desks and tables. If that's not possible, because there is a one-on-one paraprofessional present or whatever, we are offering the option to come up with, and we're working on procuring more protective barriers. We have some, but we are going to need more, so that it could be a plexiglass shield of some sort that would sit between either the instructional assistant and the student, or the teacher and the student, that would provide that extra measure of protection for them. In some of our really high needs programs, our current IAs, because these students are already with us in person, they've opted to that instead of that physical barrier, that they would instead be gearing up with full personal protective equipment, and that has been supplied to them to be able to do that work, so that if they have to be in closer proximity to students, again, we are providing those precautions for everybody. Masking for all students and staff per guidelines, and we just became aware of some recent changes to some of the guidelines, so I'm going to bring back at a future meeting some revisions to the masking policy for you to take a look at. The one that you approved last week did not include a couple of updates to those protocols, so we want to make sure that we get those in place. Pooled testing starts the week of March 22nd. For those who are already with us, 4 students and staff who have given us permission to do so. And for those who are not familiar with pooled testing, it is an opportunity to take groups of students or groups of staff and test them in a single pool, so that there's a swab that is used and that pool is then tested as a group. The reason why is because it is a little less expensive than doing individual testing, and it also can be turned around fairly quickly. If the pool produces a positive result, then everybody who was in that pool is then tested individually to narrow down who the individual actually is. And then all of the proper contact tracing and all of the steps that need to happen to work from there are undertaken. And I just want to, and I think I have shared this so that you can hear the video. If I haven't, we'll have to do this at another time, but I believe I've done this. But one of the teachers at Newton Street School, which is just another indication of our staff helping to collaborate with us to find solutions to issues as they arise, came across this video of a 2nd grader who's going to demonstrate for you how pooled testing works. So here we go.
Today I'm going to show you how to do a nasal swab. Step 1. Hand sanitize your hands. Step 2. Take out the nasal swab. Don't touch the side that you are gonna put up your nose. Step 3. Take the swab and put it in your nose and spin it around 4 times. Then do the same thing in your other nostril. Last step, drop it boogers down into the tube. You're done.
Again, the teachers are on the lookout for ways to be helpful in this process, and a teacher at Newton School found this video. I just thought it was, really cute. So it's something we want to share more widely. Sometimes children will listen to other children more than they'll listen to adults. So, this is a great thing to be able to share with the kids. But that's basically how pool testing works. It's not, if you've, like me, had to have the full-on test where they're almost up to your eyeball. This is a lot less invasive and allows the children to have control over how the test happens, and then drop whatever into the tube, and off it goes for testing. So that's process will start next week. The supplies have arrived, so we're grateful for that. The state is going to fund this through mid-April. There is some talk about funding going beyond that, but if not, we will pick up the cost ourselves as well. Full-on cleaning protocols is another mitigation strategy in terms of wiping down of surfaces, using electrostatic sprayers both in classrooms and on our vehicle fleets to make sure that, again, all of those viral protections are in place. We have protocols in place for symptomatic individuals, including medical waiting rooms, so that they can be quickly isolated from the rest of the population. All of protocols are, again, these are all coming from the Department of Public Health and the CDC. Air purifiers, the first shipment comes in tomorrow. So if you see me in my jeans and a pair of work boots around the district, it's because I'm trying to help move boxes around and unpack them. So you do what you got to do to make sure that this happens. So we're pleased that that's happening. Transportation protocols are in place. February 11th, the commissioner changed those protocols to allow for full capacity on buses, but everyone must be masked. There must be assigned seats. The vehicle must operate with the windows open, and again, they must follow strict cleaning protocols. Both our own local fleet and Kuzmeskis have both trained their drivers in all of the proper protocols to make sure that all of this happens. Technology has been working to make sure that we've got a safe learning environment so that children who might require assistive technology needs, that there's not sharing of equipment, that there is specific equipment assigned to students. And then our food service folks have been working very hard on doing grab-and-go meals and trying to make them appealing and appetizing to students, and they're making some tweaks to their menus to try and help with that as well. And so it's going to be done in a grab-and-go situation. So again, we don't have students waiting in a food line to pick up food in a way that would not be safe. And then depending on the school, some schools may be eating in the classroom because of physical distancing requirements. Other schools may be able to use their cafeterias to be able to do that. So those are the mitigation strategies that are embedded into this plan. Again, and just reminding to the general public that, personal responsibility and all of this is key to success, making good decisions, especially for our teenage friends, that you're following those guidelines outside of school, that you're thinking about travel. Massachusetts has very few places that you can travel to and return to the Commonwealth without losing more time from teaching and learning. So we're really trying to message to families that, be thinking carefully about your travel plans. I know April break is coming. Everybody's hopeful. Everybody wants to get out there, but just really be cautious about that, and taking those personal precautions when you're out in public anywhere are all things that are going to help us in schools in the long run. So the next steps in this process, now that we have more definitive plans and more information out, is to continue with our regular community engagement with updates on our progress. We are going to schedule some public forums for next week, and we'll do some at various days of the week and at times of the day, so that we make sure that we have multiple opportunities for people to participate in ways that work with work schedules and all of those kinds of things. The virtual tours will be filmed tomorrow, and then those will be out next week as well. So again, parents can have a clear vision of what's happening. And again, we're just trying to work through our in-person learning command system to work with faculty and staff to identify challenges along the way, and then to work collaboratively to find solutions to those challenges. We're going to do an additional survey next week to gather some more specific information from parents about what their intentions are to attend in person or remotely, or to access transportation and to access meals, so we can continue our plans. We're a little bit in a chicken and egg kind of scenario right now. People need plans to know what they want to do, and we need information from them to solidify the plan. So, that two-way transaction will be taking place in earnest over the next week. We'll continue our command center meetings twice a week, maybe more frequent as we get closer and closer to it. And then again, we may have to do a little calendar setting for some more key decision points, particularly around the mask updates that we need to put forward to you. And then last of all, I am just eternally grateful to the administration and the staff who have worked so diligently over the past 2.5 weeks, because that's really all the time we've had to get this up and running, and to try and iron out these details at this point. And I can't say enough about Kuzmeskis and how cooperative they have been with us to try and help meet the scheduling challenges, as well as our own in-house transportation. People will do what they need to do to help us make this work. And so I'm just really grateful for the team and their continued commitment to bringing our students and staff back to a really welcoming and safe environment. And so what my hope is tonight, that at least we could get preliminary approval from the committee for this plan as it has been fleshed out. And certainly if we need to make some adjustments along the way, that'll be another key decision point that I may be asking you to come back together and meet on. But that's the presentation of the plan as it stands. So Chair Prayati, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Houle. Awesome. If you wouldn't mind, perfect, unsharing your screen, you're so good. Let's have, at this point, before we discuss, a motion to approve the in-person learning plan as presented by the superintendent.
So moved, Johnson Musad.
A second?
Seconded, Member Karen.
Second from Member Karen and the mayor who waved. So great. So let's have some discussion questions.
I have some comments and questions.
Please, go ahead.
First, Superintendent Houle, I just want to appreciate you for jumping in the way you did, essentially starting from scratch with this plan. I know we had been working on some plans, but it was at a very different point in the pandemic and obviously before the commissioner made this pronouncement. So appreciate you and the staff for all of your hard work. I appreciate the young person who demonstrated the nasal swab test so effectively. I learned something and in a way that made me happy. So I think that's really special and really shows the diligence of your staff in finding ways to communicate in ways that people can actually listen to. I want to make some comments about this commissioner's edict because I think that we are not responding strongly enough about what has essentially happened, which is the commissioner put every school in this state into receivership, essentially being able to dictate to local communities what was going to happen on what timeline. It makes absolutely no sense without regard for the varying resources of the different communities, and it just displays an ethic that I feel I see too often in some elected officials of being very much for local control when the local community wants to do what they want to do, but when they have an agenda, they're more than happy to overwhelm local control. So I have a lot of concerns about that. And I feel like one of the places where kind of seeing some of these inequities show up, you spoke about, Dr. Houle, in terms of parents needing to drop their students off. I understand the limited resources of our staff make that an impossibility for them to drop their students off before a particular time, but especially for certain people who have certain types of jobs, very rigid jobs, that's a real hardship. And you know, we are getting a lot of resources for education to address this pandemic, just as we reach herd immunity. In other words, not yet. So, but with those resources, we could have had the staff in place to make something like that possible. And I guess I wanted to say also that I think that there's been some concern raised that the commissioner's urgency about getting the students back in school really has to do with getting them back into school so they can be tested. And our school committee has expressed opposition to the MCAS being implemented this year, but I feel like that is a big part of it. They don't have a way of doing MCAS testing remotely, so they're requiring everyone to come back in person, and they may be responding more to the concerns of the standardized testing lobby than to the needs of our students. I guess one kind of practical thing I wanted you to consider, Dr. Houle, is I used to work in public health emergency preparedness. And one of the things that we did was when we did an operation like the Deerfield EDS emergency dispensing site had practiced doing a drive-through flu clinic. we had evaluators who were there, just eyes and ears, people who didn't have any other job but to pay attention to what was going on and make recommendations at the end of the day. And I wanted you to consider perhaps working with the Greenfield Health Department or with the Franklin Regional Council of Governments to have people trained in public health emergency preparedness to actually be there to be eyes and ears and be able to make recommendations for how the process can be improved. Because as comprehensive as your planning is, and it looks great to me, I'm sure there are going to be things that come up that that we aren't expecting, and how could we? It's a completely unprecedented situation. So I would just like you to encourage you to consider that.
Thank you, Secretary Johnson Musad. I see a hand from the mayor and then from Member Hollins.
Thank you. Superintendent Poole, I just want to thank you for that. And I'm hoping that folks on this call who were concerned that we haven't had a plan for reopening, they see that we have actually been working on it, and we do have a plan for reopening. So thank you for that. It was very thorough. I do want to acknowledge the fact that, and I may have missed it in your explanation, early on there was a woman who spoke in public comment who wanted to know if there was such a thing as morning and after care. I didn't think that I heard it, and I don't know if it's part of the plan, if it's something that we can ultimately put into the plan. I know that it's very important for certainly for people who have those kinds of jobs that start early in the morning, that are in late at night, late in the afternoon, who are first responders, etc. We have many of those in the city. So if there is a part of the plan that I missed, if you wouldn't mind repeating it, fine. If not, I would like to see us work on that. With regard to cooperation with the Greenfield Public Health Department on any testing and or vaccination, that is a given. The Greenfield Public Health Department has been working with the schools from the beginning, and they will continue to do so. So don't concern. We will work with the schools in whatever capacity they need to the extent that we can. And I think that ongoing communication behind the scenes has been happening. So I want the school committee to understand that, and the public too, that certainly is happening. And as we do the reopening, whatever adjustments need to be made will be made. And I hope that all school personnel who will be involved in this will understand what those public health parameters are and abide by them when they occur. So I think that's all I have to say on this matter, but good job. And I appreciate the fact that you laid it out so well for us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Member Hollins, go ahead.
I had two comments. The first, I'd like to go back to a comment during public session by kindergarten teacher Michael Sustic. I believe he spoke this meeting and also the last meeting, asking us to please give additional consideration to bringing in kindergarten children who are not returning with any routine that they know. I wanted to ask if, when I finish my comment, if Dr. Poole could comment on that. Also, it's my recollection any year that we bring everybody starts school on the same day except the kindergarten children. I could be remembering this incorrectly, but my recollection is everyone else gets settled and then you bring in the kindergarten children. There's a slight delay, but I think that Michael Sustic made some interesting points about maybe some extra consideration for transitioning in these children that have never been in school before, have never seen a school, don't know their teacher, and don't ask me what those considerations are, but that's one comment. And the second thing I want to mention is that in our revolving funds and our policy of keeping a balance, we have a revolving fund, I think, for before and after school services. So I don't know if money is the issue or staffing, but there's some money in that fund for starting a program that doesn't exist. And I think our habit was, it's so long, I don't really know what the habit was, but there was a time when parents weren't charged for coming in a little early, an hour early, and we paid the assistants in the school an extra hour, but they did pay for after school care. It was sort of child care on a sliding fee. And we have some history of offering this in different schools. So I do think it's really important for parents trying to get back to work if someone who has time, which is probably no one, could think about that. So those are my two comments. In particular, I do think Michael Sustick made good points, and I'm wondering if we are delaying maybe the kindergarten children coming in by a couple of days, which I think is traditional. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Holland. Dr. Houle, did you have anything you wanted to comment on related to those questions and comments from school committee members?
Sure. I'll start with the before and after school care program. I think we've been so enmeshed, I shall say, in the logistics of the actual school day and what that looks like and how we get everybody in and out that we haven't really had time to focus on that. But I do know that the YMCA has before and after school, and we actually have buses that do stop and pick up and drop off children at that program. I do know that there are a couple of other community organizations that have before and after school programs. So since we're in a public moment here, it's my outreach to them that if you are within earshot of this and would like to partner with us, please pick up the phone and give my office a call or send me an email. I'd be happy to think through that. It would not necessarily, be something that would be part of the plan itself, but whether or not we can either partner with other agencies to either push in before and after school or, transportation wise or whatever. We're open to possibilities and want to think outside the box around those things for sure. In terms of the kindergarten children, again, that's something we certainly could look at. I'd be very interested in talking with our kindergarten staff. So again, if they're happy to have a conversation with me about that and what that might look like, I'm happy to have a conversation with them. So again, I would encourage them to reach out so that we can connect on some of those things, or to reach out to their building principals and we'll work it through the process as well. So that, I think, takes care of those things. And again, Mayor Weir Gardner, I can't stress enough how grateful we are for the cooperation with the city and with the health department. They've been wonderful, and it really just was my way of giving them a shout out during this presentation. Our school nurses work really well with them. They're very communicative with us. As soon as they know something about vaccines, I get an email, we pass it along. So, we're just really trying to work in tandem, and I'm just really grateful for the city's work with us as we navigate uncharted waters here for sure. In terms of the evaluator thing, Member Johnson-Musad, I think there's merit to that idea. It's just the logistics of how to pull all of that off that we need to think through. But thank you for sharing that, and certainly, we'll have some more conversations about if that can happen, and if so, how. Because again, feedback as we go through the process, if a part of the plan, even once we're in, isn't working well and we need to adjust it, then we need to adjust it. So I think that's what people have to understand. I think the pandemic has taught us a lot about resilience, an adaptation as a society, and I hope that that's a process that we can carry into this particular work, that we understand that when a challenge or an issue is identified, that certainly I want to know about those challenges and those issues, and then I want to work collaboratively with people to be able to solve the problems, because I think it's working together. The amount of work that's gone into getting us to this point, and the amount of people who have collaborated together and have stepped to the plate and said, yep, you need buses to come at a different time, we'll make it work. Or you need help moving air purifiers around. Yeah, principals are saying, yeah, I'll bring my car, we'll throw boxes in because we have, a single truck on our side. If we need to help move things around, we'll help move things around. We'll do what we need to do. We'll do what it takes to make sure that this is both a welcoming and a safe opening for everyone.
This is Member Karen.
Thank you. Go ahead, Member Karen.
So I really appreciate hearing from Mr. Sustick and hearing about, the concern for the kindergartners. And there's just a lot of transitioning happening for those tiny humans, but also all of the humans. My wonder is if that is even going to be allowed, if that would be considered not following the mandate to get back on April 5th. I hope that would be allowed, a little flexibility within the plan. But then I next thought was, well, if we must start them on April 5th, could we do half days? Could we do different ways of just, initiating them into the fire, so to speak, thinking outside the box. And then I'm not sure, because I am not a Y employee, but I do not believe they are planning to re-offer before and after care, because they will be continuing to offer the remote program for children, and that's too many options for contamination for them. It's too hard to control. So as far as I know, they will not be trying to offer before and after care, because they will continue for the children who want to stay remote. So, I mean, we can get more information, and yes, we should definitely be reaching out, and hopefully we can make more connections. But I want to pass along the little information I had. Thank you so much for your work on this plan. It's a week later. We made a decision to go forward and not try and push for waivers a little over a week ago. And all of the plans we'd had in place before this were hybrid plans with long stretches of phasing in. And this is, yes, we had plans, but they were not for this. So I'm really appreciative and grateful for all that you have done. The whole team. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Karen. I see Mayor Rita Gardner's hand. Go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you, Member Karen, for those comments. As far as the evaluator program goes, I think that is what I was speaking of when I said the Greenfield Health Department will do what it can to assess whatever glitches, whatever inadequacies you find in your program that affect the health of our staff and our children. So we do have people well-schooled in public health in the Greenfield Health Department. Number one. Number two, actually, the rec department has in the past offered after school, I can't say before school, but certainly after school programs. And I believe in the early stages, Christy Moore was involved in whatever the great team was putting together. We've moved past that, I think is what Member Karen was mentioning. But I wouldn't hesitate to reach out to Christy Moore, our recreation director, to see what is available for after. I do know, having been a working mom many years ago, before care and after care are both very important. There's some gaps here, and to the extent that we can draw on our community partners to help with that, we'll just check into it, I'm pretty sure. Thank you.
I'm sorry, this
Thank
is
you.
Member Karen. I have one more question. I'm sorry.
No need to apologize. Go ahead, Member Karen.
I really appreciate the plan, and this may be a part that hasn't been worked out yet. What is the plan or thought process? And again, I don't know if we're even there yet, about what will happen with the students who choose to stay remote versus the students who chose to go in person. I'm assuming I can't, I don't want to make any assumptions. So throw any information you have out at me if you can this time.
Sure. In answer to your first question about kindergarten, because I don't want to lose that either, now that we've put in for the waiver for 5th grade, I do have a contact that has been assigned to Greenfield from the department, so I will reach out to that contact to see how much flexibility there is with kindergarten. My understanding is that April 5th is a hard and fast date unless you get a waiver. If we have to put in a second waiver with the school committee's blessing, I'd be happy to try and do that as well. But I will reach out to the DESE tomorrow to find out, precisely how hard and fast that date is and how that's working for kindergarten students. And then the second question with regard to remote learning, the commissioner has talked pretty much about having some sort of simulcast going on between the regular classroom and students who are staying at remote for synchronous times during the day. We are procuring technology equipment to enable that to happen within the classrooms. And again, a lot of it's going to depend on how many students, whether at the elementary level, there's a small enough cohort that, who, depending on who's in person and who's remote, could a teacher be responsible for remote children only? That kind of thing. When you get to the middle and high school and you're dealing with more specialized areas of content and expertise, those opportunities are not available to them. So certainly something to think through in terms of how we're going to pull all of this off. But there is an expectation on the part of the commissioner that there will be synchronous learning going on for those students who choose to remain remote.
Thank you, Dr. Houle. Do we have any further questions or comments from the school committee? Okay, I'm not hearing any. So the motion on the table, just to refresh, is to approve the in-person learning plan as presented by the superintendent. Secretary Johnson-Musad, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Member Karen,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom,
Yes.
Member Hollins,
Yes.
Secretary Johnson-Musad, I'm a yes. Chair Prayati,
Yes.
Member Wall,
Yes.
Mayor Wiedegardner.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Wonderful. And thanks again for all that hard work to all of the folks on the command team and Dr. Houle for leading them and everyone who's going to load air purifiers into their car and move them around. Thank you all. So we have a little bit of a, I did want to say, and I should have said this before we started that discussion about in-person learning, is that there is a memo outlining everything that was in Dr. Houle's presentation on the in-person learning. That's a part of the materials for tonight's meeting. So if folks are following along and wanting that information, you can go to the GPS K-12 website and find it under the school committee meeting materials for this evening. And now, like I said, we are deviating just a little bit from our normal course of things, and we are going to take an executive session break now. We're going to leave this WebEx open the entire time we will leave, and then we will come back after our executive session. And the item we will discuss after that is the superintendent search process. Liz LaFond from the Mass Association of School Committees will be with us at that time to have the superintendent search discussion and make some decisions about how that search will move forward. So for the public, you can kind of hang out. You can get a text from a friend to come and join us once you've heard we're back. I don't have a timeline on how long the executive session will be, but we will also have the GCTV coverage until we're back in session and completed with the superintendent search item. And then for the school committee members, let's take a 5-minute break. And there is a link for a Google Meet. It is not on WebEx. It's a Google Meet that Dr. Houle sent out earlier in the week that you can access for the executive session.
So Chair Prayati, you will need a motion to go into executive session and a vote.
Thank you. Motion to open an executive session, please.
Do you want to state the purpose? Do you want to state the purpose for the executive session?
Oh, yes. For exemption number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. And I do declare, and it says we'll return on the agenda to open session by 7:30. I think that is wishful thinking.
About 7:45.
7:45, let's do it, okay? Let's try for it. Let's see. A motion to open executive session from the mayor. And a second?
Second.
From Member Wall. And let's do a vote, please.
Member Karen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom?
Yes.
Member Hollins? I didn't hear you.
Just trying to get it off mute.
Okay. If you nod, Member Hollins, I'll accept that as a yes. Okay, I have a visual of Member Hollins for a yes. Secretary Johnson Musad, I'm a yes. Chair Prayati?
Yes.
Member Wall?
Yes.
Mayor Wiedegartner?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, so we will move into executive session in the Google Meet link that the school committee members were provided, and we will return to this just as soon as we can. This meeting will stay open.
Jean, do you have the link?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Thanks.
Still getting a
Susan Farber, you're good to go?
Sorry.
Susan Farber, are you good to go? You ready to take notes? I'm just gonna wait until I hear from you. Something in the chat is fine too. She is here, but I'm not hearing anything. I'm gonna assume we're good to go. Yes, she's good. Okay, awesome. So we are back. I have an echo on the line. Hang on. Okay. Yes. Okay. For our final agenda item in public session, which is the superintendent search process, we are so glad to be moving forward with this. And Liz LaFawn from the Mass Association of School Committees, thank you so much for being here with us tonight, especially at a late hour like this. We truly appreciate it. We are going to, I think, just kind of work through what you suggest we talk about this evening. And I did share the information that you had sent forward earlier today with the full school committee. I did share it as a document in Google Drive, so hopefully everyone can access that and see it if you haven't already. But Liz, why don't you give us a little introduction and we'll go from there.
So hi, everybody. I met you all at your last meeting, and we talked, you had a memo that sort of outlined next steps. And I think one of the most important things that we can begin to work on right now is designing your brochure so that we can get the advertisement up and out and communicated to all sorts of people that are in this line of work. And so that's where I'd like to begin, really. I hope you all have had a chance to look at those sample brochures. I just tried to give you a flavor of what you might like yours to look like. And if you pick a sort of a format, that's one step out of the way, and it's the easiest decision we can probably make. And then we can start to talk about some of the qualifications and other pieces we want to fill in that brochure.
I don't know if it's Andrew. Super cute. She showed me pictures of him. She should show.
It's always fun managing these meetings. Glenn, are you managing?
We all take turns. Always fun.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I think that's the other thing, if we have time to get to it beyond the brochure, or even if we start with the brochure and come back to it, I'd like you to, comment on that sample timeline that you got last week, and I would guess you got again today, and then talk about the kinds of people, groups of people you'd like us to set up focus groups with. So that's the first kind of pieces of work that sets the whole process in motion. Did anybody have a favorite brochure format that they fell in love with?
I have to admit,
did. Go ahead.
I was going to say the opposite. I felt that like the stereotypical man who doesn't care.
It's fine. Some people love those trifolds, and some people, they have moved to that sort of full page presentation. It doesn't matter to us how we do it. It's actually easier in a full page for us than those little trifold squares. So
my preference was for the Pittsfield one, which maybe is the full page that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one just, to me, it was a lot easier to digest it. But I think it's just kind of a personal preference thing. Mayor Wiedegardner, you're on mute, but go ahead.
I confess that I haven't been able to look at all of the brochures, but what I can say is, and I'm going back to the one that resulted in the hiring of Superintendent Harper, because that's the only one I had available to me that that I had accessed, but that's neither here nor there. I didn't see the others, but the one that I'm talking about talked about all the buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And while they are very, very important, and I think it's important to at least replace the high school building if we're going to show buildings at all, with not the artist rendering, but an actual building now. But more than that, I want us to, if we're going to use visuals, I want us to use the people and the children and the teachers who are Greenfield. So pictures of human beings, not buildings.
So that's exactly what Pittsfield did, and their cover is very, very colorful, and students. It's kind of a powerful cover.
Yeah,
I found it
good.
attractive too. So
good. Yeah, it's important to. We're not about buildings. We're about the kids that are in the buildings, but it is important, of course, to know that our infrastructure is sound.
So I would suspect that we would more talk about that in sort of the community profile than highlight those as photographs.
Yeah. So.
Can I ask a question? Can anyone hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I was on mute. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Liz, I'm curious, have you found that the way that a brochure is formatted draws more applicants in or is viewed more times or anything like that? I don't know that you all have, but I'm curious. I mean,
So not necessarily, but it is a fun piece of PR that you can create for your district in this virtual time. Now, when we used to do mailings, people preferred the trifold because it was one sheet of paper. They got their information out. Everybody's getting them virtually now, unless they specifically ask for a paper copy. And we've had very few requests for paper copies. So I say go with the bigger, fancier, flashier, tell more about your district version, if you're of a mind to do that.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, and I just want to stress the importance of whatever we choose for a brochure. It has to work both in real life, IRL, as a paper brochure, but it has to work online too, so that we know that people who are looking at us are looking at us, mostly online. So I don't know how we bridge both of those gaps, but.
So we distribute in PDF. That's worked pretty well for us. I send kind of the draft of what I'm doing out to the folks in Boston whose job it is to actually do graphic design, so that they make everything as sharp and as perfect and as readable as possible.
I like the Clinton brochure and not do buildings, but maybe do students and the things in the school. I think it's more elegant looking than the Pittsfield one, with just more of what we have.
I think I agree with you, Wall.
Okay.
I scrolled right past that one, but I do like the outline, the framing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And we can put any pictures we want. It doesn't have to be buildings like they have.
Yeah.
Where's that one? I'm not sure what you're looking at.
It's the very last one.
Okay, let me look.
So we can do the pictures two ways. You can have somebody from the district send them to me. I would typically do my own research first, because the kind of photos that I would see online about your kids through your district or on your website are already kids who have those media releases signed, and we don't have to worry about that, right?
That's right.
So any pictures that you absolutely love, you can send to me. Otherwise, I'm going to go into your website and any other news media where I see bright, colorful kids learning exciting things. And anything is going to come back to you for final approval. It may come back more than once, but that depends on you.
It probably goes without saying, but just make sure that we do show the diversity of our school population.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with showing something like the middle school, which is old and elegant, and the high school, which is new and shiny. I mean,
no, not at all.
I have a comment. I wonder, I guess I'm just wondering out loud here, but I'm imagining it would be kind of neat to have like a mobile first kind of website that is the website version of this pamphlet. It seems like thinking about things in terms of pamphlets is kind of maybe inheriting from the past instead of thinking of where are people now and how are they interacting with information. And for the most part, it's like video, it's mobile first, it's websites, like people would create a website for a special event like a wedding. I wonder if we have like even just a special dedicated website just for our superintendent search.
There's certainly a section on your website that's highlighted on the front page so that you can click and go directly to it.
We did talk about that last week, almost like having it kind of like a wiki that can be easily updated.
Mm-hmm.
I will work with Lauren, and I think actually the collaborative runs our website, so I'll work with them to see how we can put something together that's easily updated by one of us or by Lauren for us.
And more interactive. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So do you have what you need for that?
So I want to now talk with you. Is everybody, I guess I would ask, does anybody else have thoughts on, I mean, the Clinton is similar to the Pittsfield in that it's full page, multi-page. So yes, I'm good with, if everybody wants Clinton, we'll work with that template and keep the process moving forward.
I'm going to sound a little ridiculous, but when I look at the Clinton version, that font is huge. Like,
well, that's probably because they said less than the pages they had, and so the more you say, the smaller the font gets, to be honest.
Okay. Well, and I'm looking at it going, but see, to me, when I see a bigger font, it says to me, you don't have a whole lot to say. Anyway.
Something tells me that won't be our problem.
That won't be Greenfield's problem. I like that. So I guess the next thing I'd like to talk about is what you want and to include for the minimum qualifications. And I guess we would start with master's degree required, perhaps advanced degree preferred. Thoughts on that?
Yes, but I will wait. I would like others to comment first. Other school committee members' comments on that.
In an education-related field? Are we happy
Absolutely.
with that wording?
I see Mayor Wiedegartner's hand and then Member Holland's hand. Go ahead.
Well, obviously in an education-related field. I'm looking now at the only one that I have, but the idea of minimum of 10 years in public school district, including 3 to 5 years, etc. I'm thinking back to the selection criteria that we employed for the last superintendent. I do think it's really important that a superintendent has been actually working in administration for more than a half a minute. So the degree to which we can, I was on that search committee, the degree to which we can emphasize that and stick to it when we do our actual selection, the better.
Well, you should stick to it. These are sort of your guiding framework. And you can say a minimum of 10, or you can say 10 to 15 years, which gives you a little more flexibility there in public education. I just came from a 2+ hour meeting. In public education, including classroom teaching, building level administration, and or central office administration.
I like that very much because it really, really, really is important that the superintendent has once upon a time stepped into a classroom as a teacher.
Very important.
Yep. Other comments? Member Hollins, did you have a comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say there's a really big difference between training for a master's degree, which almost every teacher in the school system will have, and training for a doctorate, which is another 3 to 4 to 8 years. You don't necessarily get training in statistics in a master's degree. If you're trained as a teacher there's just a really big difference. It doesn't mean you're smarter, but it certainly is a different level of training. You don't necessarily get a good background in school law. The superintendent's job isn't really teaching, although you need to understand how children learn. It's really more like it's just a lot, as you know. So I would say going for a master's degree is a low standard. If somebody's done the coursework for a doctorate, I think that's fine. But if all of their training is just at the master's level, which is just kind of now the standard for a professional teacher, you're bringing in somebody that really doesn't have the depth of background, in my opinion. There's some courses, doctoral courses, that don't really offer much depth of background, maybe. But I think you're really underselling the study background that you need for the jobs are really complicated. And I think you've brought the, I think it's really important that somebody has prior central office experience. It's very different than teaching. And more people on the school committee are watching how technically complicated everything is and having to be able to negotiate and know all the laws and know all the rules. So I would say it seems to me in my era, it always was a requirement. You had 5 years of central office experience, special ed, great background to come into a superintendency. There's a lot of different routes to take, but a master's degree and no central office experience is really bringing in a novice. Greenfield is harder than some other places, I have to say. It's a really challenging place for a lot of reasons, including that it's a city. And the politics here are a little different than anywhere else around us, where if you need money, you go to the town, you ask them for money. That person has to be good enough to really negotiate with the mayor and the city council, which has a lot of sophistication in finance. So I say try for 5 years experience. You can always waive something. And at least the bulk of a master's degree, doctoral degree, I think you've experienced people with lots of experience and then people without a lot of experience. That's my recommendation. There is a big difference in the degrees, I think.
So I would like to amplify the experience in school finance because it was woefully lacking in the last one. So it just to get us back together and on even keel. That is a really important qualification. Now, I don't know how you amplify that versus.
We're going to get to that. We are going to get to that. Trust me. It's very important. And if I may respond, I want to just say that we've seen quite a number of candidates, Member Hollins, that have sort of all but dissertation. They've completed their coursework or they're just completing their coursework. And if you eliminated the master's degree required, you'd eliminate a whole group of people that you might want to take a look at. We understand and appreciate the difficulties of running a central office in a small city, actually anywhere, but in a small city. And the other thing I just want to throw out now, because I tend to do a lot of work in Berkshire County, Franklin, Hampshire County, but you will see some folks who are, for instance, some of the smaller districts have a superintendent and no other central office staff or very sparse central office staff. In this case, if you've been a longtime principal in that district, you have by default worked very closely with the superintendent and have gained valuable. This is kind of a case by case that we try to be pretty particular about. We certainly would never want to throw a teacher into a superintendency or somebody that had no idea what central office operations look like. I couldn't agree with you more on that.
Just to clarify, go ahead.
I think that we should talk about their superintendent having their certification to be a superintendent.
Oh, of course. Yep.
And I'm not talking about a provisional certification. I want them to have the actual certification.
Sometimes it's a transition.
I got a little ahead of myself. We have to say certified or eligible for certification, and it could be that they're completing required coursework as part of their doctorate because, there could be a lot of things. They could be coming from another state and they're eligible for certification in Massachusetts, but they're not yet certified here. So,
and Liz, that would be something that you could help us investigate in terms of candidates.
Well, to the best, your district, someone in your district HR might be better able to access DESI's secure portal on the certification than I could.
And I just want to point out that apropos of that, we are reminding everybody we're hiring a superintendent in a pandemic. So they may not have even had access to those final courses that they need or certification things. So while that's important, and I'm not saying that's not important, I'm just saying I wouldn't go so hard. And I think that Liz and I are on the same page on that. I wouldn't go so hard on that we eliminate a group of people that we might want to take a look at.
Okay, I see Member Holland's hand and then Member Ekstrom.
Well, I just want to say that anyone you hire, whether the moment they have the certification or not, has to have it. And of all the criteria you've mentioned, the one that will least stand for what the person knows is the certification. You can get your certification by peer review, which is if you're good at talking, people that never had a course can get their certification as superintendent. So everybody's going to have it, but it's not a standard of what you know. And I didn't say to eliminate people, just to be clear with the masters. I just think you need somebody who's got more vitality for academic training and is higher up the, those doctoral degrees are at least 3 or 4 more years of coursework.
Thank you. Member Ekstrom, go ahead.
I guess maybe more what I'm driving at is that I want, my opinion, I think that the district would benefit from a superintendent who is not just starting to be a superintendent. I think that we would benefit greatly from someone who has been a superintendent in another district anywhere, because there are just as what I'm learning with our interim superintendent having stepped in, there are a lot of things that weren't happening previously, and I don't want to say that it wasn't, I don't think things were willfully not brought forth. I think it was just perhaps not knowing or not being fully cognizant of steps that need to be taken, things like that. And I think we would benefit from having someone who's been around a little bit.
Fresh start.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So we're going to talk about 10 to 15 years in public education, including classroom teaching, building level administration, preferably, would we say 3 to 5 years experience in central office?
Mm-hmm.
I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't want to, again, it's just sort of widening that possibility of drawing someone in. Demonstrated successful experience with curriculum development and implementation.
That feels vague to me. What does that actually mean?
Well, that means that you're going to be able to talk about the work that you've done in curriculum development, planning, budgeting for, implementing, providing professional development around.
Okay.
Oh, excuse me, I've got to close my door. Be right back.
Yep, no problem. Member Hollins, why don't you go ahead?
Well, anyone who teaches is going to have a background in whatever field they taught. I think if you had to pick, what are the 2 or 3 most important skills? Their knowledge of being a curriculum supervisor. You need to understand how children learn. But it seems to me at the superintendent level, the most important, as the mayor said, you have to have a good grasp of school finance. If you don't have good grasp of school finance, you're going to be in trouble all the time trying to do anything else. And you really need to have a background in policy, law, and HR You can bring in a consultant on any area of curriculum, but it's really hard to not understand your finances and school law and have the personality that, can work with people. So I don't see the background in curriculum for a superintendent where you have you can build consultants for curriculum in your budget. I don't think that's the highest priority of skills you need.
I just changed the order on my list because as I was putting them together, I was just running through my mind. But the next one on my list, in fact, which is now before curriculum, is experience developing and implementing school district budget. Is there something more you'd like to say about that?
Strong experience.
Demonstrated experience?
Yes.
Well,
Demonstrated.
And also, I do think that was touched on a little bit earlier, but I do think developing a school district budget in a municipality versus a regional district has some relevance too.
I think she's correct.
I have a question.
Secretary Johnson-Musad, go ahead.
I'm wondering how we get at, this school committee has really wanted to prioritize racial and social justice, and how do we get at their ability to kind of address any kind of systemic inequities?
So I think we talk about that in leadership qualities or profile of the next superintendent. However you want to address that section, that's where you're going to talk about some real particulars. This is just sort of that broad frame of what qualifies you. And now this.
Great, thank you.
So I wanted to also say, although we could say this in one of those other areas as well, working knowledge of special education laws, regulations, and programming, which is the never-ending thing to try to keep up with these days, right?
So I'd like to make a comment about this.
Sure, Vice Chair Ekstrom, and then I saw Member Holland's hand as well.
I think it's not just a working knowledge of special education laws, regulations, and programming. It's a working knowledge and in how to apply them to benefit the students best. And if that feels, there's, let's say, I don't know, I'll make something up.
So like implementation of special education programming.
An ability or creative implementation if it's necessary. It's just for me, the point is to get across that not every kid learns the same, and so there may be some sort of very small regulation that has to be met. However, if it isn't to the benefit of that kid, and I know I'm getting in a murky area, I wouldn't necessarily say that that's best practice for teaching that person.
Right. So again, this is the general framework, and we're going to get more specific in your brochure. And these are the kinds of things you will probe during an interview for sure.
Okay. Sorry.
Rita Gardner just left. She did sign off. Sorry about that. Member Hollins, go ahead.
On what you said about budget, anybody on this call could go home and write a budget. That is not in itself what's essential. What's essential is that you have a background in budget and finance, including total funds for revenue sources and how they interplay, because that's where your total funds budget comes in, and understanding how all these things interact with each other. Just creating the budget, how much you want to spend, you can put any numbers in the lines, but you have to have a real grasp of your revenue sources in this state and federal revenue. That's how you make your budget work. And on the issue of specific to special ed law, there's a whole lot of school law that's really important. It's not only special ed, it's rights of parents and non-guardian parents and parents with different gender identities and non-custodial parents, discipline. There's just a lot. So I would say a breadth of understanding of a school law And then in your interview questions, you can try to figure out what they know about that, because it's just a lot, and special ed falls in there with all kinds of other things of non-discrimination. And anyway, my sense is on both of those, it needs to be a little broader, and then you can figure out what people know when you interview them. I'm sorry to be so opinionated, but
No, this is your brochure, and whatever you all agree to, that's what's going to go out. It's not my brochure. So
okay, so qualifications were, yeah.
So let me just run through this again real quick, okay?
Please, thank you.
Master's degree required, advanced degree preferred in an education-related field. Certified or eligible for certification, that's a standard. 10 to 15 years in public education. Teacher, building level administrator, preferably, I'm going to word this right so that it doesn't sound like you need to have been all of them. And I'm going to add preferably 3 to 5 years in central office administration. Background in budget and finance, including experience developing and implementing school district, maybe I'll say a municipal school district budget.
Demonstrated experience, please. Does it sound weird to say that?
Well, if they either have experience or if they don't, so we can add demonstrated, it doesn't sound.
That's fine.
I think I'm taking out the curriculum development and implementation. And I don't think that's essential. Okay. Breadth of understanding of school-related law or just school law? School law. Clearly, special ed falls in there, and discipline and expulsion and parents' rights, student rights, school committee responsibilities, role of superintendent. So I think that that's a good framework, set of requirements, so that people you end up interviewing are either going to have these qualities or they're going to have some other outstanding reason why you want to talk to them that might mitigate one of the qualities, is all I can say. I'm not sure that you'd want to exclude somebody who's outstanding that might have 9 years and 3 years at central office, for example. However, understanding that we're not, you don't want to look at somebody that isn't ready to hit the ground running in Greenfield.
Right.
Could I make one other comment?
Yes.
Please, go ahead.
I don't think the clarification about municipal budget is so important. You're going to eliminate most of the people in the state that apply because most people aren't in cities. I think it's pretty much the same. The trick with the city is that you have to really be able to work well with other people and be very articulate. And the last thing is I think somebody needs to be a good communicator, written and oral language. If you get somebody who can't write and they're making proposals to the city, they're going to be thrown out. But I don't think municipal budgeting is so important. It's basically the same school budget.
I'm not going to make it my hill to die on.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. Because we're going to get into the municipal government in terms of the leadership qualities. And in terms of just how I was putting some out here, and I really, this is up to you, but I was just wanted to provide some food for thought. Ability to collaborate with diverse groups of stakeholders, including community and municipal government. Mm-hmm. So I see that as like a number one priority. You either need to collaborate and communicate. Communication is a huge need because the superintendent is the face of your district to the public. Couldn't agree more with that. Amy, did I see somebody's hand pop up there?
I was looking at my laptop, so I would have missed it. I think you can keep going.
This is Member Karen. I have
Member Karen, go ahead.
Thank you, Liz, that you just nailed exactly what I wanted to say. I think it's probably more of an interview question and like all of that, but we really need someone who can communicate with such large groups of diverse people in our community in many different modes of communication. personal communication, working well with their staff, also with our community, our different language communities, all of that. We really need that to be a focus for us going forward. And I think that maybe it is an interview situation, but I would love to see that included in some way.
Well, you'd be surprised how many people eliminate themselves from the process with a sloppy application and resume.
Sadly, I don't
Committee
think they would.
members, particularly with a background in education, don't like seeing that. Strong written and verbal, we can say oral, strong written and verbal communication skills.
I think there needs to be more than that.
Yes.
And maybe I'm wrong. I want to see, and maybe this goes with the other piece. We need to see someone who's a team builder and is solution focused and
I prefer solution oriented.
Okay, that's fine. And is looking for a reason to say yes to things as opposed to say no, and maybe that will come out in the interviews. But that's been a struggle. And someone who's able to handle difficult situations with grace as opposed to react emotionally from being confronted.
So something like competency with difficult conversations, something like that.
Yeah.
That might be something you want to include in your interview process rather than sticking on your brochure.
I see what you're saying, but I think I tend to lean towards what Liz is saying, that it's too granular. Yeah.
Good question.
Please go ahead, Secretary Johnson-Musad.
Well, it's kind of, I guess I'll start here. It sounds like we're really describing a really wonderful candidate. And I'm just wondering if, given our timeline and budget, are we going to put into this description a superhero superintendent?
Yes.
We can't afford, and we don't have, and all of those superintendents have already been taken because their search process started much earlier. I just frankly have to say that given the website that was just posted today, it's just, I really feel like at some point, I don't know, obviously this may not be the time to do it, but at some point we have to talk about how we are going to appear to a superintendent who searches for Greenfield Public Schools and, reads what's available on the internet about our district. I don't know if that's something Mass can assist with.
Are you proposing that we say we'll take anybody? I mean, I think we put our qualities we want.
I guess in terms of an actual strategic question, I guess it's a question for you, Liz, about do school districts ever kind of shoot for the moon so much in their brochures that they end up driving away, that they don't end up getting a good enough pool because people look and say, well, I don't have that, so I'm not going to apply. But the people who do have that are getting better offers at more functional school districts.
So
it's an assumption that every place is more functional.
So I'm going to say no. I don't think that anything I've seen here, you would expect a superintendent candidate, and you would absolutely demand that someone who has been a superintendent who's applying has a breadth of understanding of school law. Having said that, we don't typically see it in the description, but I don't think it's uncommon for someone to expect to understand that if they want to be a superintendent, right? And if they have worked on those doctoral courses, they are aware of these things, and they certainly, it's not a bad qualification. For example, You need somebody who understands budget and finance. Now, is a background in budget and finance if somebody doesn't have a background as a budget and finance person, would they say, heck, I'm not going to apply for it, even though I've had experience in a school district developing a school budget? I say they're still going to apply. I don't think we've gotten there yet, Glenn. But I think that keeping some of those real granular particulars out of this brochure is important.
Yeah.
The collaboration and communication piece, classic and typical, right? Nobody wants somebody who can't communicate with the public, no matter how good they are, because you're going to be in trouble. You're leading a school district, strong written and verbal communications. So the other kinds of things that I want you to think about here that are important to Greenfield that you all know better than me, in terms of leadership qualities, is you want some successful experience working with diverse populations as a general statement. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want some experience implementing social emotional curriculum? Is that a realistic expectation?
I wonder if that's another thing, like what Dr. Hollins was saying, that you can kind of bring in a consultant. I know that Collaborative has wonderful resources on that
I
topic.
would agree with that. I mean, that's another thing you get at in the interview for sure, around their experience in social emotional. I was trying to simply throw some thoughts out rather than trying to build your brochure for you. I was just trying to get your juices flowing.
But what about their ability to kind of identify consultant talent and know what talent is needed? And that seems like the real skill. I don't know how you put that into words, but
identify.
Skillful in building partnerships, maybe, because you've got colleges all over and consultants all over.
Identify, attract, and retain talent, both in staff and community partnerships.
Yes, absolutely.
Sounds good.
So again, these are qualities that you're looking for. I don't know that you're going to find someone who meets every single one of them, but how many of them do they tick off? Anything else?
Yeah, I wonder if there's a place to add comfort in public speaking to groups of all sizes. I think that maybe that's too granular, but I do think a comfort with public speaking in a role like this is kind of important. Maybe people don't gravitate to being a superintendent if they're not comfortable with it. I don't know. But it's something for me that's kind of a big deal, but I'm not, again, going to make it my hill to die on. If we feel like it doesn't belong here, that we can move on.
So do you want to fortify your statement around strong written and verbal communication skills?
That's what I was thinking, actually. So strong written and verbal communication skills, including a comfort with public speaking. Something like that.
I guess I'm struggling a little with the strong written and verbal communication skills, just because it does sound so baseline. Is it more about like public relations and community level communicate? I don't know exactly what the terminology is, but it seems like any candidate to be a superintendent, gosh, I mean, I guess, like you're saying, Liz, some people you'll be able to tell from their application.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, so strong written and verbal communication skills, including public relations and community level communications. That actually sounds pretty nice together. No?
Yeah. I would even, if people are okay with it, I would even, around communication skills, use, instead of strong, exemplary, or something like stronger, stronger than strong.
Expert level.
You guys, it's your brochure, but we do want people to apply.
Okay, so keeping it
Want
strong.
people that you can talk to and find out how good they are
Yeah,
at
no,
sitting in
keeping
front
it
of a
strong.
camera and spilling their life story in front of you, right?
Right. They're going to
Yes.
be coming for a public interview, so we'll get a good look at that.
So what I suspect, I'm just going to stop here for a moment and take a breath, because what I suspect is going to happen here is that I'm going to draft a brochure that looks similar, or I'm going to talk with my people who do this work, and we're going to draft something that comes back to you. And when you see it all together, I suspect we're going to have a second round at this to tune it up. Does that sound like that's probably what we're looking at?
Sounds wonderful.
Good.
Because it's easier to edit than to come up with the original stuff.
I couldn't agree more. What have I done to myself now? Okay. My computer is automatically adding comments that I'm assigning to myself, Glenn. I've never done this to myself before, so I don't know why it's happening. Hold on. Let's see if I can just back out of this.
Are you in Microsoft Word?
I am in a Google Doc.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, that's why.
Is it a shared doc? If it's a shared, sometimes that happens.
I don't want any of that in there. Okay.
And it's the autosave will get you too.
All right, I'm back where I need to be.
Okay.
Thank you. So what sets Greenfield apart? Can we talk about something in the community here and the schools that is that you would like to highlight in your brochure? Is this something you all would like to think about and come back around to?
Well, I don't want to sound vanilla, and I probably will think of things later, but the first thing that did come to mind for me is we have a very engaged community. A lot of people turn into school committee meetings. A lot of people show up for events in the community and attend city council and participate regardless of their, connection. Like, I see names of people, just for example, that tune into school committee meeting that don't even have kids. That are really tuning in just because they want to know what's happening in town. Maybe that's I don't know, maybe that's vanilla. I don't know.
So,
But
Amy, really to all of you, I took the approach with this that I didn't want to come in and have it appear that I wanted to write this brochure for you, because I didn't. However, I certainly have, in many cases, gone to the Chamber of Commerce, to the city website, and pulled out some really engaging and interesting highlights and thrown them into a brochure. And if you all would like to do this with this section, I would say it's getting a little late in the night. I know we've all been at it for a long time. I could do some of that initial, like looking at the Chamber of Commerce, your school district, the city website, pull out some interesting highlights. And if you all want to think along those same lines and shoot me an individual email with those kinds of things, I'll plug them in and bring it back the next time so you can all look at it
Sure.
in another official meeting. Might save some time here.
I'm seeing a couple of head nods. Are you guys okay with that? Is the school committee
Yeah.
okay with that?
As long as you're just emailing me, I will compile it all together and I will get it back to you to act on in a public meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead,
Sorry.
Secretary Johnson-Musad, go ahead.
It's just so I don't have to remember to send an email later. But when I used to have a job that involved going down to Hampden and Hampshire County and then working in Franklin County. And one of the things that I really noticed is that I think because there are scant resources here, and maybe because it's a rural community, but there's a feeling of people working together and fewer turf battles than I see in some other places. So I think, for someone who wants to see what it's like, you can see even in tonight's meeting, the incredible cooperation between the city and the schools. There isn't a sense of people fighting against each other. So that's
So you've been assigned that line for homework, Glenn. You need to condense that into a thoughtful statement and send it to me.
All right. And then we should say something about our wonderful immigrant populations as well.
You really have a vibrant downtown, I have to tell you. I live just down the highway a little bit, and before we were all locked down for far too long, I used to enjoy coming up to Greenfield and eating in a restaurant and hearing some music,
I think that's an important thing to mention is I was going to say our vibrant downtown, and I will send you something, Liz. And I did just remember that we have been recognized many years over as like what is it, a playful city?
Playful city, yes.
A playful city. So we have these amazing parks and recreation
areas, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth mentioning that.
So the other thing we want to mention in this section is sort of some of the outstanding programming that you have in school. We want to hit on your band and your chorus, your sporting activities, in any of the AP honors, the high level courses. Do you have dual enrollment with GCC?
Oh, yes.
So that's another thing what sets us apart? Well, Greenfield Community College is in our backyard, and we have a, rigorous, would we say robust? Glenn might fire me if I use that word in the brochure. But your relationship with GCC and the kids who, participate in dual enrollment courses there.
Yeah.
That's a highlight because there's so many districts still trying to kick that kind of thing off.
Not long ago, we were a designated math and science high school, and at that time, I think we went up to 10 or 12 AP courses in every area of math and science, which we still have.
So this is a highlight. This is what sets Greenfield apart for a small city. So these are the kinds of things.
Resources and organizations that support the schools. We have Education Found. I mean, really, it's the county seat. There's a lot of resources here. And I bet there's at least 10 organizations that are doing things for our students besides the Ed Foundation.
So these are things that we should include in that what sets Greenfield apart statement, right? I'll do some looking, and I know you all will do some looking, and send me an email about some sort of thoughtful statements that we can put in here that really does make a statement about Greenfield and what makes you attractive besides the fact that somebody wants a superintendency, right?
Exactly.
Well, there's a lot going on in Greenfield, and you should show it off in your brochure. The district profile is easy enough for me to draft and then get some specifics as needed, either from central office or from you all. And I would certainly start with that district. I know it was several years ago, but I would start with that district profile in your last brochure and update that to the degree I can update it, and then have you all add to it at your next look. Does that sound fair enough?
Yeah, and yes, if you can coordinate with Jean on that, and then we can help fill in any gaps that come up.
Yeah, I'm doing my best to coordinate with Jean on everything.
I know.
Jean's the lead. Okay, so see, we are moving along.
Yep.
You all did see the sample timeline?
Yes.
Yes.
I know that many districts like to put in specific dates. We found that in the pandemic, if you use sort of that early May to mid-May, early June to mid-June cycle, that you have some flexibility, especially with the amount of times that school committees have been meeting, and all the other needs that have come along. So if you have a preference on that, now would be a time to look at that timeline. Do you have it, or should can I share my screen, Glenn?
I think you probably can. Do you see the option there?
Let me see.
If not, I can. One of us can probably add it. Let's see.
It says I would have to open my system preferences.
You got it.
So on the bottom of your screen, it'll say mute, stop video, or share. I think if you just click share, then you can share your screen.
It's grayed out for me.
I just made you a presenter. So what did I do wrong?
And did you say you got an alert about system preferences, Liz?
So when I click it, it says open your system preferences to allow WebEx meetings to record your computer screen.
If you're on a Mac, you would have to go in and enable that to be able to share your screen. I don't know if you're on a Mac, but whatever computer you're
So
on.
when I press it, it sends me into my system preferences, and the only thing unclicked is Cisco WebEx. So I should check that box.
Yep, check that.
Oh, I'd have to quit first. It tells me it won't share until I quit first.
I don't have an easy way to share it from here.
You already sent, because if you did, I can share my screen.
It's in the document that you got today, in fact.
It's called Greenfield 3/18/2021.
And it's page 2 of that, Glenn. Sorry. I'll get prepared
How
for
about
that.
this?
Oh, there we go. Yep. Thank
That
you,
work?
Vice Chair Ekstrom. Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you.
All right.
So we're going to come back another time for this sample brochure. When is your next meeting?
Right now, our next meeting is scheduled for the second Wednesday in April, which would be the 14th.
Okay. Well, I'll have it back to you well before then.
I wouldn't be surprised if we had more meetings.
I was going to say
either, but let's.
Okay.
Let's not talk
Let me
about that
just
now.
say, I'll have it back to you well before then, and I will send a thoughtful email asking everybody to spend some time with it and to be prepared to provide feedback at the meeting so that we can finalize it. How does that sound?
Perfect.
Sure.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? We
Of
have
course.
we have a group that is going to be assisting or contributing to finding someone. Are they also going to have a discussion about things that they would like to see? Because that was part of. There's a lot of people in the community that wanted to be part of the discussion of the person that they're looking for or they're hoping would apply or whatever it is. And I was sort of under the impression that they would also have some input on that.
Oh, I'm going to hold focus groups.
Okay. All right. I just
and-
wanted to make sure. Yeah. Because, I mean, what we want and what other people in the community may want are completely, I hope they
we're gonna
align, but
hold
if not, but
focus
they may not.
groups, Susan, we're going to hold these groups. We're going to, every bit of feedback I get, unless it's a duplicity of feedback, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to provide it to you. But every piece of feedback, basically, you will get. In addition to that, we would like to post an online survey, which really tends to reach more people than showing up at another Zoom meeting at this stage of the game. However, we will still do the Zoom meetings, and we will be there for anybody who wants to show up. You did get some survey links to look at. It's basically plays off of your brochure. You know what, so of these qualities that your school committee has says is important, you know, however many are on that list, which ones do you find most important? And we'll provide an other box where they can provide an open comment. We will allow open comments on things like, what do you think are, sorry, my brain's thinking that it's my bedtime. What are the strengths of the Greenfield Public Schools that should be preserved? That's an open comment box, right? And what do you see as the biggest challenge for the next or superintendent? That's an open comment. And you would be surprised how many times we see consistent comments. But you'll get a lot of comments and you'll see them all.
Great.
So that's collected through SurveyMonkey. I would set that up and have you all take a look at it first and then provide feedback to me at this next meeting before we set it live. Setting up these focus groups does not take a lot of time. I will work with somebody in your central office. I'll provide the Zoom links. And the schedule, we kind of know when we can get teachers. We kind of know when we can get students. We'll do the community and the parents, probably one with the parents in the late afternoon and one in the early evening. We'll do one strictly for community, and then we'll do one that's community and business oriented for whomever shows up for that. And then if there's anything else, certainly students, we will do students, probably middle school. We get very few middle school kids who show up, but you know what? We'll be there if somebody shows up and we'll take their input. And we will do one for high school, which we do see kids show up and provide very thoughtful and important feedback. True story.
I'll make my high schooler go.
And really, if there's any specific group of people you want me to set up a focus group for, I am happy to do that.
Thank you.
I know that constituents in Greenfield would want someone to ask this, so I'm going to ask, what do we do about people who don't have access to computers who would like to be part of this group?
So I'm going to say this.
Or how can we reach out to them?
Well, I will tell you that I don't know about you all, but I've been Zoom bombed. I could certainly do telephone calls to the Zoom number, but it is, so whatever I see or hear at that stage of the game is what everybody else is going to see or hear. My preference would be if somebody would identify themselves when they're coming into that room.
Sure.
Can we send them to the public library or something like that, Susan? Can we set up, some creative way to have computers available?
We
The
can't.
library's closed right now
Yeah.
because of COVID.
Can they reach out to me? I don't, well.
Let's put some thought
might
into
be an
that.
option. And I just wanted to mention it.
Can they write a letter and that could get forwarded to me?
That's what I was going to say, is let's put some thought into that, because I think we could probably do some outreach. I know that we've had a need to do outreach to the families of the English language learners in the district. We could do that and see if we can get some feedback that way. But I think it is important to ask probably Dr. Houle, Dr. Dickinson, Andy Paquette for some guidance around how they would suggest we do that, knowing what they are seeing when we have problems communicating with students and families. So
when you do family events, do you typically have an interpreter present? Do you have a district interpreter?
No.
No.
We probably should. We do not. And I think it would depend on the event.
But
if we're talking about before COVID, I think it would depend on the event.
Okay. There are lots of interpreters available in Greenfield who work at the hospital, and I'm sure that they would be happy to work with us too.
So we have a Moldovan, Romanian interpreter on staff. Think so.
So is that a big language in Greenfield?
Yes.
Oh,
we have a large Eastern European immigrant community.
Okay.
And so that Russian, Moldovan are two of the languages that we regularly need assistance with translating.
So there's two ways to look at that, if I may. There's providing an actual interpreter for the parent sessions that'll be held on Zoom, or getting the online survey translated and pumping that out so that folks can take the online in their own language and respond in their own language. We just then need some help.
We can facilitate getting things translated. For example, the summer lunch program, all the information goes out in Spanish and Moldovan and Russian, I think, as well as English.
Good.
Secretary Johnson-Musad, go ahead.
I think it would be great to have a focus group with racial, social justice, and environmental activists. I think all of those groups have had important collaborations with their schools and have an important perspective to bring to that question. I don't know if it makes sense to have, I'm just thinking of all the important issues related to preparing our students for a world of climate change. But also there's a lot of overlap between those issues and the issues around racism. So I'm not sure whether they should be separate or together. But we can think put more thought into that.
So yeah, and we can do a separate, so sort of, we'll call it a community session, but we will specifically invite those groups that you identify to that one.
Great.
And I'll need to connect with someone in your office to get these sessions posted on your website, to communicate with principals, to send whatever communications they send home, however that happens, so that families know, and students know.
We can connect you with Lauren. She's amazing. She will help with all of
And
that.
I don't want to say another thing because I've seen Susan's hand up.
Oh,
No, I
I'm
just
sorry.
wanted to
Member
say
Holmes.
that in addition to having been a designated immigration center for the cultures we talked about, our demographic is about 20% Hispanic. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So a lot of these sessions, so the online survey won't in essence get posted until we finalize what you've identified as your key characteristics or your key criteria, because that's important to the survey. So the faster, if we get that done, for example, before the second Wednesday in April, that's great. And if we don't, it goes up the second, when we're done meeting, I get it in the Survey Monkey and it's live the next day or that night, depending on how late you keep me up.
Our meetings used to go to midnight. I know.
I don't even know the last time I stayed up till midnight, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm not sure anyone does anymore.
So we're saying that by late March, early April, so we're not far off from that, we'll get this vacancy posted once the brochure is done and out. During the month of April, we'll get these focus sessions conducted. That happens rather quickly. You'd be surprised. It's a couple of intensive weeks we get it done. That survey will stay up longer than the couple of weeks. Probably mid to late April, we will orient the preliminary search committee. We'll talk to them about their responsibilities. We'll collect any necessary disclosure forms. Gina and I talked about inviting city clerk to that meeting to swear everybody in and give them the appropriate open meeting law documentation. So mid to late May, the preliminary, we anticipate as of today, barring anything holding us back, mid to late May, that the preliminary search committee will start to conduct their interviews. By mid-June, could be early to mid-June, the finalists will be to the school committee. Mid to late June, we would like to see final, there's the potential to finalize the interview dates and the site visit dates with you all. We could do that now, but I hesitate to do that in this time, just given everything else that pops up, right?
Right.
I'd like to finalize them with you when we know how many finalists we have. And in late June to July, the Greenfield School Committee could be appointing a superintendent with the potential start date, and that's also important for your brochure. So we're going to include that as September 2021 or as negotiated. Okay.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
So we still have a lot of work to do, but I'm going to get it organized and out to you. You're going to send your thoughts back to me. And then I'll compile it all again, send it back for the next meeting, and we'll look to approve it and or fine tune it as necessary. How does that sound?
Perfect.
A little
Sounds
earlier
great.
though, ladies and
Yes.
gentlemen.
This was a wonderful major step forward, Liz. Thank you very much for working with us. And yes,
I apologize, Amy, but some people really want me to come in and have this prepared for them to look at and sort of check off. And I didn't see Greenfield as that committee. So
no,
you'll have a little more to look at with the next email.
I think this was a really good approach for us. We're very active and hands-on. So this was great.
And opinionated.
Yes. Yeah, that is
We're all
very
going to
true.
get along just fine.
I'd like to think it's question oriented, but all right.
Solution
well-
oriented.
Well, the other thing I will say is that we structured our meeting tonight this way so that Dr. Houle could go home before 9 p.m.
Right.
for once in the and the next time we'll take turns so we can do something different for you the next time and
I
have
get
it be earlier.
Well, the next big time that we'll spend together, and now I have a good idea around how I'll organize that, right, is when we develop your finalist questions.
Great.
But I want you all to know that if you send me an email alone and nobody else, it's okay. I'm outside the open meeting law. And so any thoughts you send to me, or if you pick up the phone and call me, it's all valuable for me to have. And I can incorporate it in anything I do for you bringing forward, okay?
Thank you. And Liz, just one last thing before we move to adjourn is I do think it's important for the folks that are tuning in. I see there's a ton of people who are still active with us listening. I know your qualifications. I know what MASC does for us, and I know your experience. Could you just share a little bit about your experience with us so people know that?
With you or so let me say in general.
Your experience that brings you to be an expert in helping us.
Thank you. So I am a resident of Hatfield. I was a Hatfield School Committee member for just a shade under 10 years. I have worked with a school committee in a small urban district, which is larger than you guys. I guess you're a municipality, but not urban by any sense, for about 30 years or so. And I'm always happy to add that during a district review, one of the few highlights talked about the school committee and the work that they had aligned their work with that of sort of the district improvement plan. And there wasn't a lot of other highlight in that report. In any case, I have been with MASC in various capacities for 7 or 8 years now. I have been on staff for the past 4 years. I've participated, I've actually led about a dozen searches. I fill in for my colleagues as they do for me from time to time on their searches. We've had a very, very busy year this year with searches, a lot of new superintendents across the Commonwealth. We have a very close-knit staff. We share our secrets with one another. And, it's funny, but we're wonky like this. We just really love the work of school committees.
Sounds like a good fit.
Yeah. And I definitely have tend to really want to work with each individual member so that the school committee is happy with the work that happens. It's never my work, it's always your work.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We should have led with that, but I think it's important for people who are still with us to know we're not just taking a shot in the dark here.
It's a very small group of wonky people who love this work. And so I'm proud to say I'm one of them.
Thank you. We look forward to working with you.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
Awesome. I would entertain at this point a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, Member Ekstrom, and I see a second with a wave from Member Hollins. And how about a roll call vote, please?
Member Karen?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ekstrom?
Yes.
Member Hollins?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson Musad, I'm a yes. Chair Poyetti?
Yes.
Member Wall?
Yes.
Mayor Wiedegardner?
Mayor Wiedegardner is gone. She left us some time ago. Not permanently, she just left the meeting.
The motion carries.
Hey, Karen, it was nice seeing your name on the screen again tonight. Long time no see, my friend.
Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us. Thank you, school committee, for great work, as always.
Good night, everyone. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Amy. Stay safe.